Covering the veteran artists from pop, rock, soul, country, folk, and blues, this is the VVN Music Podcast. Today's program is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/VVN. Hi, and welcome to the VVN Music Podcast. I'm Roger Wink, and today we're talking with longtime Foghat drummer Roger Earl. Roger initially played in the British blues band Savoy Brown before breaking away from the group in 1970 with fellow members Dave Peverett and Tony Stevens and Black Cat Bones guitarist Rod Price to form Foghat. Their self-titled 1972 debut album was produced by Dave Edmonds, and over the next 11 years, they released 13 albums, including 1975's Fool for the City, which included their biggest hit in the U.S., Slow Ride. There have been numerous lineup changes over the years, but throughout their history, there's been one constant, drummer Roger Earl. Roger is the only person to play on every one of Foghat's albums, including their new one, Under the Influence, which was released on June 24th. The new album may be their best in decades and includes a brand new version of Slow Ride along with a cover of I Heard It Through the Grapevine and numerous originals. We talked with Roger from his home on Long Island. Thank you so much for talking.
No, that's fine. My pleasure, actually. It's a way to sort of let everybody know that we've got a new album coming out, and this is fine by me. I don't know. I've done probably, I think, 4 or 5 interviews today. It's fine. And I make notes just so it doesn't get too boring for everybody. And occasionally I find something new to say. I even know when our vinyl's coming out.
Well, you know what? That was one of my questions when the vinyl was going to come out.
It's going to come out around the middle of September. We were trying to get it out around the same time as the CD. But once we started manufacturing the CD, they said, no, that'll take about 3 months, but we're doing it in the best grade or heaviest grade vinyl, 180 grams. So, they have some weight in their hands. It's a double vinyl record, because we didn't want to squeeze all the tracks up so that, you lose quality. And Linda has already done the artwork for it. It's pretty similar to actually the CD and has all the information on it.
I've heard that it is taking quite a long time because of the vinyl surge to get things through the plants now, so I'm sure that's the main reason.
Yeah, there is that. Also, there's probably a couple of people that are really good at doing vinyl, so there are others that have sprung up, but we go with people who we know or have been told that they're really good. Our last album we did on vinyl with, in fact, it was blue vinyl.
I understand you're very much behind the whole vinyl surge, and you prefer the music to be on vinyl.
Well, that's not, to be honest with you, it's not entirely true. I just got used to getting everything over onto CDs, and then they decide that vinyl's the way to go. Trouble is, you can't play vinyl in the car. They tried that back in the day. Can you imagine, like a 1960s Chevy, with a record player in it? I don't know. That's not going to work, is it?
Nah, especially with the potholes.
Yeah, in New York. Oh, you're in New York as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm up in Rochester. You're on the North Shore of Long Island, correct?
Yeah. It's a beautiful day here, and it's God's own given earth.
Whenabouts did you come and actually settle in the U.S.?
I first came here in '68 when I was in Savoy Brown. And then we came here late 71, early 72. I can't remember exactly when, with Foghat's first tour. I think it was 72 actually. Then we had a really long tour. I got back to England 73 and said, I think I'm going to move to the States. It's where I wanted to be. I mean, I grew up listening to American music. This is where my future was. So I moved here. I love all things American, cars, music especially. America gave music to the world. Even to this day, it's the same. They have hip hop artists in Israel and England and France and Germany, German hip-hop artists. It's true. Israeli hip-hop artists. And they have them in Afghanistan and probably got them in China as well, though I haven't been there yet.
You are, for all intents and purposes, Foghat. I mean, you've been the face and the one constant that's been in every lineup of the band for 45 years. What drove you to keep going while others were moving on to other things?
Well, mainly the good Lord hasn't seen fit to take me just yet, and I'm very grateful for that. I like it down here. I'm not sure what my future will be. It's something I always wanted to do. I mean, Dave did leave the band and moved back to England at the end of 84, 85. And I took about 6 months off the road and then just went back playing again with two folks from the lineup at that time. And it carried on ever since. Dave came back in 1990, I think. About 5 or 6 years later, he rediscovered the fact that he can't earn a living in England, which we both knew a long time ago. Anyway, we got back together, I think, in 92, 93.
Is it mainly in rock that you can't make the money in England, or is it just general in the music business as a whole?
I think, music. Well, we had a couple of issues with Foghat. Savoy Brown did well in England, and also especially in the States here. But when myself and Dave left Savoy Brown, we went back to England, and we started putting the band together, and got Rob Price to join the band. Savoy Brown's manager at the time, Harry Simmons. Kim was fine. Harry Simmons, his manager, told us that we would never work again in England or Europe or the States. Not that he had much of a hand on the States. We were with an agency called the Chrysalis Agency, Terry Ellis and Chris Wright. And in fact, I went out to see them. They invited me over to their house to discuss what we were doing. Harry Simmons told them that if they took on Foghat, he would take Savoy Brown and Chicken Shack away, which were two of the biggest bands in England and Europe at the time. So we were kind of stuck. Mind you, Harry went to jail after that, so I don't feel so bad about it. Nothing to do with us. But he was a bit of a nasty bastard anyway. But Kim and I remained good friends over the years. It was amicable when we left the band. And in fact, Kim is playing on this record. Do you know that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And Kim and I have played together over the years, bumped into each other on the road. I did some tracks on one of his albums. And anytime Kim and I meet up on the road or he gets to play with us or jam with us, it's just, I was going to say warm and fuzzy, but I get a real thrill out of listening to the way he plays. I think his playing is probably better than ever. I mean, he's a great blues guitarist as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, Kim and I always got on really well. There was maybe mutual admiration, but there was never a problem with us. We always got on well. And when this album came up, we did some dates together on the Rock Legends cruise, and Kim got up and jammed with Foghat, and I got up and played 3 or 4 songs with his band, and I invited him to come and play on the record. And he said, well, I don't want to just lend my name to it. And I said, no, don't worry about that. You'll be working, which he laughed. And I said to him, I want you to have input on the title track, which we hadn't actually finished at the time. Most of the lyrics were done. And he said, okay. And he left upstate New York sometime. Where is it? Somewhere up in Rome or Syracuse or somewhere like that. And he left about 4 o'clock in the morning. He got stuck in Detroit for God knows how many hours. He eventually got to Nashville around 8:30 at night. I picked him up at the airport. I took him to the hotel. And I said, you want to get something to eat or take a nap or something? And he said, no, let's go to the studio. So we went to the studio, said hello to everybody, plugged his guitar into the amp that he wanted, and turned all the knobs to 11. And I said, you want to hear a run through with the track? And he said, no, just play it. And the first time he played this, and we'd never heard the song before, Upside of Lonely. and Scott Holt is singing that, and he nailed it the first time. There's about 10 of us in the studio at the time with all the musicians on the record and the engineers and stuff, and he finished it. And he got a standing ovation. I think it's sort of he's quite reserved in his way, and so I think that made him. He did it again, but Kim, I can't really say enough. He's an absolutely brilliant guitar player, and I really, really enjoyed hanging out with him and playing with him. And he was terrific on the record. I think he made that song, actually. And we have a few other guests on there. Scott Holt, who used to play guitar with Buddy Guy, so you have to be good. We became friends, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago. And he came down to the house in Florida, the studio there, and co-wrote a whole bunch of songs with us. I think 2 or 3 of them have made it onto the record. And we got a whole bunch of songs left over, so we started another band called Earl and the Agitators. Just an excuse so that we can get the music out there. But we've opened up for Foghat on a couple of occasions, so I'm doing double duty, which is fine. I love to play. Scott is a fantastic guitar player and a great singer too. And we also have Dana Fuchs. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah, I was familiar with her, and then I was going to comment. She does a great job on the album.
Thank you. Yeah, we met her in Canada. We were doing after we did our Last Train Home album. We did some blues shows up in Canada through festivals, and we met her at one of them. And it was a little bit strange as well because it is often the way in festivals. Everything was running late. The stage manager was about as useless as tits on a ball. And Dana went on, and as soon as she started playing, it was already half an hour into our set, and they had, a cut-off time. They had a curfew, which meant that even if we were lucky, we'd only get 45 minutes. So we had to have the plug pulled on her, which is a horrible thing to do to an artist. But
damn
Dana
Canadians.
was absolutely, no, Dana was fantastic. She was so cool about it. She said, no, I understand. And when we started doing a couple of songs, actually, I think it was our manager who suggested it. She said, what about Dana Fuchs with a female vocal on this, with Charlie, with one with Charlie and one with Scott singing. And it worked out great. She's such a cool chick. She really is. She's got a great voice and a terrific woman. I really enjoyed working with her.
How did you get Tom Hambridge in to produce the album?
Offered him thousands and thousands of dollars. Actually, I met Tom Hambridge about 4 years ago. I was a presenter at the Memphis Blues Awards, and I presented Buddy Guy with, he won 3 things: Best Guitar, Best Album, Best Song, bunch of other stuff. Anyway, which was really cool, like shaking Buddy Guy's hand. I carry a picture with me in my one of my books that I carry on the road. And I met Tom Hambridge. He was his producer, and he also won an award. And later on in the evening, we were at the same hotel and in the bar, and he was talking, and he said that he was a huge fan of Foghat and would love to produce an album one day. Well, we got about halfway through this album about a year and a half ago, and it was time to call in some help because put the band in charge, it's going to take forever. Not because we don't know what we're doing, it's just that sometimes you need someone else, and it seemed like a good time. And Tom was absolutely fantastic and very instrumental in making this album as good as I think it is. He really pulled stuff together. He came down about a year and a half ago, something like that, and we worked on it just to see if we could write together, play, and see how he was. And we wrote 2 or 3 songs together, and he was great at helping out on arrangements. It's like having a 5th member there. He's also a fantastic drummer as well as being a great, musician and writer. And then he came back again about a year later, came down to our studio in Florida, and he'd written some songs specifically for us. And then we worked on 3 or 4 more songs and arrangements and lyrics, and it just worked. And then we finished the album up in Dark Horse Studios in Tennessee, in Franklin, Tennessee. And it was, what a great studio. It was terrific. And everybody had a blast. Tom's ability to make all the musicians comfortable and like, he got everybody comfortable with it. The studio was fantastic as well. Great headphone mixes and just a really warm place. No pressure. Everybody was having a good time, and there, no egos. It was a really thoroughly enjoyable musical experience. Which at this time of life, it's good to have that. It was a lot of fun working with him. I can't say enough about him.
Did you find you had a special bond with them, so being that you're both drummers?
Yeah, we bonded. We bonded over a bottle of Maker's Mark bourbon one night. In fact, I think it was just prior to him writing the lyrics to Under the Influence. In fact, it was our manager, Linda, who came up with the title about 3 years ago when we were sort of talking about what we wanted to do in the album. And like, we were talking about like the sort of songs and attitudes and music that influenced all of us over the years. And she came up with the title. And I was sitting with Tom out on the back porch down in Florida, and he likes to sip bourbon, and I like to sip it too. And we were talking about influences, the people that had influenced Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, etc. And the next morning, he had all the lyrics, and then the rest of us put everything together. Yeah, it worked really well. It was thoroughly enjoyable experience. Other times when you've been in the studio, it can be work, but Tom had a really good way of handling everything and came up with some really cool ideas as far as arrangements, and he's a real producer. I was impressed.
Now, this album overall took you, about 3 years from beginning to end to put together. What was the main reason for it? Just all your road work?
Yeah, I enjoyed writing music, and like I said earlier, I had a really great time writing with the rest of the band, and also especially with Scott Holt. Charlie is a brilliant word master and comes up with some great ideas, and Brian Bassett is a fantastic, guitar player and slide player. So it was just a lot of fun. In fact, we had, like I said earlier, we have an excess of music. So, we were very prolific this time. Whereas other times, sometimes you talking about earlier days, sometimes we struggled with, coming up with material that everybody likes, especially if it was only just, one writer like Dave used to prefer to write alone, whereas the rest of us, work together on lyrics and songs and ideas and come up with stuff. So we just got a whole bunch of stuff, as you can see on the record. And like I said, we've probably got another 15 or 20 songs laying around down there that will eventually come out, I guess.
During the 70s, you put out, 13 albums in about 9 years? Something
like that. I don't remember.
So it has to be nice to be able to sit back and just take your time with one.
Well, you got to remember in the 70s we were younger, and full of piss and vinegar, and various other things. It was, we were when you get a chance. The thing is when you get a chance, or certainly as far as I was concerned, and when things start working and you're selling records and you're playing sold out arenas, the last thing you want to do is sit back and go, well, I don't really want to make any more records. But we were busy, and it was a great time. Stayed away from home for 12 months of the year. It was a great time. I really enjoyed it. It was hard on Rob Price touring after about 1975, after we finished the Fall for the City album. Rod really had a hard time going on the road and playing, and I think he wanted to take more time off. Whereas Dave, on the other hand, was like me. He loved being on the road. One of the things I loved about Dave, he was always up for playing. Every time we got on stage, he would give it, 110%. And off stage, he was a quiet person. He used to come out to like the blues clubs in Chicago or stuff like that. But generally, he kept pretty much to himself unless we were working together. But Rod found it really hard being out there. I don't think he enjoyed it, whereas Dave and I loved it. You know, we were, what's the word, road warriors. It's what we wanted to do. And we got a chance to do it and grabbed it with both hands.
We'll return to our interview with Roger Earl in just a minute. It's summer, and it's also a perfect time to sit back in the shade and relax with an audiobook. VVN Music has partnered with Audible.com for a special offer where you can receive a free audiobook download by joining the Audible service. Audible has over 180,000 books from which to choose, including the latest bestsellers in both fiction and nonfiction. For music fans, there are hundreds of books from biographies to histories. You can now listen to Never a Dull Moment, 1971, the year that rock exploded, by David Hepworth. It's a look back at the year when the Beatles broke up and artists like David Bowie, Pink Floyd, and Joni Mitchell began to hit their strides. Also available are such titles as Let's Go Crazy on the late Prince, Alice in Chains, The Untold Story, and The History of Rock and Roll in 10 Songs by Grail Marcus. All you have to do to get your free book is go to audibletrial.com/VVN and make your selection. That's audibletrial.com/VVN. You still do 60 or 70 shows a year, I know. And, you know, you think back to a number of veteran drummers who in recent years have come out and said that, you know, they can't play anymore, nerve damage. And I know that you play, I mean, you really go for it when you play drums. Is there anything special you do to keep everything in shape so that, you know, you don't wear out the instrument?
Well, I've got 2 new hands. And I think it was in January, I had some real issues with my hands from playing, just a lot of pain. I knew, and my manager knew a really good hand specialist, and he put my hands back together for me. And they're fantastic. I have no pain or anything at the moment. I have no arthritis. I take supplements. I take care of myself. I exercise, you know, stretch, do lightweight stuff like that. And I play regularly. I rarely have a day where I don't sit down on the pad for an hour or more, and, you know, keep your hands and feet in shape. And like I said, I got new hands. So after I went in because I had a month off. It was pretty painful. Like after the drugs wore off, after about 12 hours, the pain was excruciating, and nothing would take the pain away. But after about 3 or 4 days, it started to ease up. But the surgeon said to me, well, when he said, just take it easy for about 3 months. And I said, 3 months? I said, in 4 weeks' time, I have 2 shows, and I'm going back in the studio for a week to finish the album. And he said, oh, that's not good. He said, you're going to have some issues with pain. And it's true. Whilst I was playing, it was fine, but then afterwards it was painful, and more importantly, it took longer to heal. But now they're as good as new. They're as good as new can be when you're 70. They're great. No pain, nothing. I'm doing well.
That's great. It's the adrenaline of playing that overshadows the any discomfort you had.
Yeah. No, I mean. I love my job. I mean, it's all I ever wanted to do ever since I was a kid. So when I first started playing, so careful what you wish for. And at this point in my career, I mean, I'm certainly not going to turn around and say I want to do that. In fact, I was talking to my manager just the other day and said it'd be nice if we could play, 2 or 3 days a week on a regular basis. But probably. What we're doing now is it works best. We usually play at least 2 dates a week now from here on out, sometimes 3 or 4, but two is good. Then you have a couple of days to recover, and it's really a really cool way for us to work. We go out and play 2 days, sometimes 3. Then you have like 4 days off at home, whereas in the old days you'd be working 7 days a week, and if you had a day off, you were either traveling or you were in the studio. So life is good. Life is really, really good. You've
mentioned in other interviews that I've read that you were fairly heavily influenced by Buddy Rich. And it's funny, I've talked in the time we've been doing this program to 4 different drummers. You're the 4th. And everyone always mentions Buddy Rich. Even though he was mainly a jazz artist, what was it about his playing that you felt was, that you took from it?
Well, actually, back in the early 70s, towards the end of when I was in Savoy Brown, he started changing his playing style. He started doing like some sort of big band funk kind of stuff and really doing some like brilliant drum work. But if you go back to what he was doing in his earlier days when he was playing with his big band stuff, let me just say one thing. I was never and could not ever even come close to what Buddy Rich is and what he does and what he did. I'm just a mere mortal. He was something else. And even to this day, drummers who aspire to to that level of competence and genius, really, he was special. There are others out there who can play, but Buddy Rich was probably the first to play the way he did, and with such how can I put it? He has incredible speed. His single stroke rolls were just blindingly fast. Like I said, us mere mortals just struggle with it. Left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, right, left, right, left. In fact, I have a picture up on in my living room, Buddy Rich. I have a picture of me up there as well, but that's about as close as we ever got. Actually, I did see him a couple of times in New York, but I think he played there. And I wasn't that far from him. You could hear him, even above the band. He was just a brilliant drummer. There are other drummers that influenced me, in fact, as far as my playing and how I approach playing with the music I play. People like AJ Van Eaton, who played on the early Sun records, Francis Clay, who played with Muddy Waters Band in the early 60s. Bernard Pretty Purdy was probably my favorite all-time drummer. In fact, I got a chance to play with him. I did 3 sessions with him where we sat side by side, which was a real thrill. Now, there was a drummer, but Bernard Purdy was just absolutely incredible. Beautiful man and an incredible drummer. We did 3 sessions together. That was a lot of fun, actually, sitting down with a drummer like that. There are many others, but initially I used to play to the early Chess records, which would be Freddie Bealo was the drummer on that record. A lot of these drummers were jazz drummers, but they could play. Rock and roll came out of jazz, believe it or not, as far as the drummers were concerned, and even the sax players. That's what started rock and roll, like Illinois Jacket and people like that. That's where that started. I don't know about the guitar players, but it was music. They're all related. It's not what you do; it's how you do it. That's what matters. That's what gets results.
What was the reason that you decided to go back and re-record a new version of Slow Ride?
There was a couple of things. It was the 40th anniversary of the record. It was also another way to sort of salute Rod and Dave, who are no longer with us. We do that on every record we've made. We thank them and just mention their names. It's when you lose bandmates, as far as I'm concerned, far too early in their careers, it's sort of especially Dave. He had a huge hand on this band, the way he sang and played, and his attitude. He loved music, as I did, but his knowledge of music was enormous. I'll give you a quick story here. We had a day off in Chicago. We were playing there, and we had a day off. So Dave and I went off to the blues clubs. I went to this club, I believe it was called Mother Blues, and we walk in, pay our $5 or whatever it was. I go off to the bar to get us a drink. I think I had a cognac and I got a white wine for Dave. And I turn around and Dave's still standing in the doorway, staring at the stage. So I made my way back to him, and I give him his drink. I say, "What's up, Dave?" He said, "Do you know that is on the drums?" I said, "No, who is it?" He said, "That's Freddie Bealo." I said, "That's Freddie Bealo." He said, that's Freddie Below, because he knew who Freddie Below was. I mean, he played on nearly all of Chuck Berry's early stuff, and was Chess's, I guess, his regular drummer, who played there, and played on a lot of those fantastic records. I used to play with it when I was learning how to play. I would play along with the songs. So they took a break, and we went up and introduced ourselves. And Freddie said to me, he said, "You want to play?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And of course, they're fine if somebody else wants to take over the seat for a while. Then they can go off and have a drink and hang out. So Dave and I got up and played for an hour with the band. But it was, it was really cool. Over the years, I've had a chance to meet and play with a number of my sort of musical heroes and influences. So it's been I've been real fortunate.
That's a fairly lengthy version of the song. It runs over 7 minutes. Does it reflect a little bit better what you do in concert now?
Yeah, it was fun. Also, we have two bass players on there. We have Nick Jameson, who played and produced the original version on the Fall for the City album, and Craig McGregor is also playing on it. So it was a little bit outgunned there with bass players, but it was really enjoyable. Everything was done live. There were no overdubs on it, whereas on the record we overdubbed a bunch of odds and ends, but it seemed like a good idea to do it this way. It's basically how we play it live, and it was fun. A lot of people sort of suggested doing it. We also had a bunch of people who were on the Pledge campaign, which that was interesting, getting their voices together. Well, Brian did that. It was it's always fun playing that record. It's a great song to play. I mean, I have fun with it even today.
How did the cover of "I Heard It Through the Grapevine" come about?
Charlie and I were in the studio down in Florida, and it was just me and Charlie. We were just jamming, just playing, and I just started something off. Charlie started playing "Heard It Through the Grapevine" and singing it, and I said, "Let's do it." In fact, we recorded it with just myself and Charlie playing, and then Craig McGregor came down and he put bass on it. Brian put his guitar on it. Brian recorded that. That's how that came about. And we did Dana's vocals up here in New York, where she lives.
It's fairly obvious from the way that Foghat has conducted itself over the years that you really do appreciate the fans. And it's my understanding that you still go out and sign autographs and talk with the fans after every show. Yeah,
that's true. I enjoy it. I mean, I know it sounds a little cliched, but really, if it wasn't for them turning up and, giving a shit about the music, we probably wouldn't be here. We were always as honest as we could be about the music and always gave it our best shot. And it was something we wanted to do. We didn't, write or do songs that were suggested by people because it would make you rich and famous. We recorded music that we wanted to record. That's why I don't really have a problem playing any songs that we ever wrote or recorded. So, and I think the fans, maybe they appreciate that honesty. Well, I like to think they do anyway. And the new band, Brian's been with us 20 years and Charlie's been with us for 16. So it's hardly new, though they are the new kids. I think, it's down to the music. I think the music is honest. It was played, from the heart. It was always played, in a live format. I mean, it was something that we could always perform, live. In fact, yesterday I went to see Bad Company and Joe Walsh out here at Jones Beach out on Long Island. And I'm good friends with Simon Kirk from Bad Co. Great drummer, really, really cool guy. And also I've met Paul Rogers a number of times, and they were just great. I mean, they always play great. The music is like, it moves you. I mean, the melodies, the grooves, the feels. I mean, it's great music. Joe Walsh, on the other hand, is just absolutely brilliant. Probably one of the truly great and underrated guitar players. And he is one funny mother. He is an absolute riot. He had there must have been 10,000 people there. He had them like laughing and crying. It was terrific. It was a great evening. In fact, we did a show with Joe Walsh about 3 years ago. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I would like to wish you all the best luck with the new album, and I assume you'll be out on the road with it.
Yeah, we will, and the vinyl's coming out sometime in the middle of September, I believe.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and again, best of luck.
All right. Thank you, Roger. Oh, by the way, good night. It was a pleasure talking to you, too.
Our thanks to Roger Earl for talking with us. Foghat's new album, Under the Influence, is available now. We'll be back soon with more editions of the VVN Music Podcast, with guests including the return of Yes legend John Anderson and John Corabi of the Dead Daisies. Remember that you can get the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues at vvnmusic.com, where you can also find back editions of our podcast with guests like Nils Lofgren, Steve Hackett, John Anderson, Marky Ramone, and Lloyd Price. If you have any comments or questions about the website or this podcast, please send them to vvnnetwork@gmail.com. Our theme music is performed by Yahar. This program was recorded on July 24th, 2016, and is a production of the VVN Network, copyright 2016.